Welcome, welcome. Um, I have had the most hectic couple of weeks, and so one of the things that I'm kind of struggling with at the moment is my immune system and also just kind of scheduling and self-care. So I thought today would be kind of a good time to focus a bit more on like during this kind of festive season, what we can do to look after ourselves, kind of boost our immunity, and also just recharge our social batteries while we're, going through the busiest, sort of most social time of year. Who have we got with us today? I would love to say hello if anyone can share where they're kind of dialing in from, and also if this is your first time with us as well. Hi, Scott. Welcome, welcome. Um, and in my kind of usual fashion, I've got a couple of things that I'll share. I've got this book with me, so I'll be reading kind of messages from there for anybody who wants one. And we'll cover that in a second. Hi, Wendy. You're from LA. Oh, cool. I've been there, but many, many, many years ago. I imagine you've got much warmer weather than we've got at the moment. Hi, Richard. I've definitely seen you before. I remember your photo. Welcome back. So for Wendy and Richard and anyone else that wants to say hi, if you give me a number between 1 and I think it's 205, if I'm remembering correctly, I'm going to pull a message for you from this book that's something that you probably need or want to hear today. So if you guys want to give me a number in the chat between 1 and 205, Richard, one of the best numbers. So 75 for Wendy. Hi, Shauna Ray. Do you guys, Mike and Shauna Ray, want to let me know where you're kind of listening in from and if this is your first time here? So let's do 75 for Wendy. So just while we kind of wait for people to filter in, I like doing this as just like a beginning kind of intro bit. And so, yeah, let me know if it's your first time. So 75 for Wendy. Don't take offense. When someone does or says something that bothers you, rather than getting all riled up, preserve your energy and learn to let things slide. That doesn't mean that what the other person has said or done is okay. Just remind yourself that you get to choose the thoughts and actions that have an impact on your life, and you can choose not to allow the negative ones to bother you. So let me just catch up on the chat. So, Richard, I'm from London too. We've probably covered this before, but I'm in East London. Okay. So, Richard, 111. If somebody can pop in the chat that we're just pulling messages for anybody that wants one, if they put a number between 1 and 205 in the chat, then when anyone filters in, they know what we're doing. Okay. I'm going to put this down while I find the page. Okay, for Richard, learn to be present. Whether you're at work, play, or somewhere in between, make an effort to simply focus on what you're doing right now. Learn to be present in each and every moment of your life and with the people with whom you share it. Don't think about coulds or shoulds, what ifs or maybes. Just keep your mind on the here and now and appreciate the moment for what it is. So, Shauna Ray, you've got number 8. That should be nice and easy to find towards the beginning. So this is a quote from someone called Nido Querbain. Nothing can add more power to your life than concentrating all your energies on a limited set of targets. I like that. That's very profound, I think. So yeah, because I think just kind of going off of that, we definitely put a lot of energy into a lot of things. And what I've noticed in my own life, at least, I don't know if it's the same for you guys, that I end up not sort of making progress with the areas and moving the needle in terms of the things that are actually the most important to me. So yeah, I think that's a really nice reminder of putting our energy into, things that are important, things we care about, and like fewer things, putting more concentrated energy into fewer things. So sort of being more focused. I've got some really nice flowers that I'm going to put here because I really like the colours of them. There we go. Perfect. So And I think that kind of is a nice message regarding the topic we're going to have today. So, those of you also who've been with me before, I don't know if you can tell from my energy, but I'm a little bit under the weather at the moment. So not quite on form, but I still wanted to kind of come here and do this and hang out. But yeah, it's not as like I'm not as in flow as I usually am. Wendy, I have so many more plants. Do you know what? I'll show you quickly. If you look at that corner up there, yeah, there. And actually this way as well, there's more. My flat's a little bit of a mess at the moment, given everything that's been going on, which I'll fill you guys in on soon as well. So where did we get up to? We had 38 for Mike, and then I think I'm going to kind of stop it there in terms of going through messages, and we'll just jump into today's topic because I think we could all use a little bit of focus on this time of year and being overwhelmed and everything else that's going on. So 38 for Mike. Sorry, Mike, I missed that. Oh wait, no, 8. So Shauna Ray put it twice. That makes sense. So 38. Feel the fear and do it anyway. So that's a quote from Susan Jeffers. I don't know who Susan Jeffers is, but if anybody does and wants to share that in the chat, please do. And then Lady Peacock, hi. We've got 1, 2, 7. Choose to be happy. Being happy doesn't have to be complicated. The minute you make the decision to be happy, you instantly become happier. Your perspective shifts and you start to see your world from the vantage point of someone who's happy. Choosing to be happy isn't the only thing that you need to do, but unless you make the conscious decision to be happy, all your other efforts will be wasted. So we've got 57 for Patty. Did I cover that already? I think I did. Maybe not. Let me check. I'm jumping around here because I think I'm catching them in the wrong order, but I think, yeah, 57. If I've missed anybody, please let me know. I'm still kind of working my way through the list, but when I get to the end of it, if I've missed anyone, let me know. So 57, and this is for Patty. Stay true to your dreams. If you find that other people are not able to share in your vision or believe in your goals, don't let them prick your balloon. Instead, realize their response is based on the expectations they have for their own lives, and this doesn't have to affect the expectations you have for yours. So I think we've covered everybody's numbers. Let me just double check. Okay, yeah, I think we did. So I'm just going to catch up on the comments. So Richard, you said things are a bit overwhelming at the moment and struggling to maintain presence compared to usual. Yeah, same. I'm definitely a lot less grounded. My self-care is being kind of compromised, and that's why I think I'm run down now. So I'm trying to fix all of that. And yeah, that's why I tend to do a live on what's pertinent and what feels relevant right now to me. And I think this is probably something that a lot of us are feeling. And then, yeah, Wendy, thanks. I like having a lot of plants. I've got them in other rooms as well. So actually, in terms of the plants, I started off with just a few, and then over time, I was splitting them up and propagating them is the correct term, and then I just ended up with loads. So, Richard, you said "Feel the Fear and Do It Anyway" was the first self-help book I read about 20 years ago. I met Susan at a book signing and have a signed copy of it. That's amazing. She sadly passed now. So let's jump into today's topic, which is around just this time of year. A lot of us can feel kind of tired, burnt out. I mean, I think last week's session was it around burnout? I can't remember. If anyone was here last week, let me know. But I do a session every week depending on what's most relevant or what feels kind of intuitively right. But the kind of common themes that cross over are kind of connection to ourselves, to others, and community and just kind of being like in a good space mentally, physically, and emotionally. So we've also covered things around attachment styles, creating community in your own life, how to sort of decide who is good for you and who isn't in terms of people you spend time around. And just being more kind of conscious and mindful around the connections we have, the connections we make, the company we keep, and how we live our lives. So just a bit of context in terms of like where I'm at currently and what's been going on. And this might be relevant for those of you in London. Have any of you heard of a show called Yumi Bum Bum Train? It's an immersive theatre show. It's got a massive cult following. So in previous years, the kind of people who've come along to it are like Prince Harry, Cara Delevingne, Kate Winslet, Jude Law, David Blaine, Madonna, and the list kind of goes on and on. But it's a massive, massive undertaking, and it's a community volunteer-led theatre project, and it's immersive theatre. So that's what, and some of you who are my regulars will know this, but that's what I've been working on in London for the last probably 6-7 months or so now. And I've got quite an involved role. Like, I'm a volunteer, so I'm not paid, but I've got one of the more kind of involved volunteer roles where I'm basically what's called a scene leader, and I look after a particular scene within the show. So I have full responsibility for like directing, producing, and casting it. And I basically need like 40 volunteers a night to kind of be in my scene. And my scene, I would say, without, because I'm not really allowed to give too much away, but for anyone that's based in London, please drop me a message, drop me a DM, because my scene is very much catered towards the type of people who would be on Insight Timer, kind of thematically and energetically. It's very apt. So if anyone wants to come and do a night with us in our scene, you'd have a lovely time, and obviously it'd be great to meet some of you in person. But yeah, there's people who are based in kind of Brooklyn who are flying in just for a couple of nights to do the show. So it's a really cool, really crazy, like super interesting thing. Like on Tuesday last week, we had like James Corden, Idris Elba. Who else came? I'm trying to think. Richard Curtis, who's a filmmaker, and a bunch of others. But yeah, it's a absolutely insane, like crazy, life-changing project. And I'm absolutely loving it, but I'm doing at the moment 4 show nights a week because I'm a scene leader, so I kind of want to be there as much as possible. Um, and it's taking a lot out of me because I have to get there early because I'm a scene leader. Otherwise, normal volunteers can kind of get there for like 6 or around that time. But I get there for like 5 p.m. latest, and then um, the show kind of starts around 7, and then our scene is kind of later in the show, so it ends at probably like 11:45 or so, and then usually we hang out in the kind of bar area and just speak to kind of the other volunteers and just sort of decompress a little bit. So I'm going to bed super late. I'm getting home late, and then I've been in a bad like sleep routine anyway. So I basically end up the last week, I've been going to bed at like 4 or 5 a.m., which is awful because I get home around probably 1 or 2, but then I kind of eat and just want to relax a little bit. So yeah, that's kind of where I'm at the moment. And I noticed one of the ways that I noticed that, my self-care is slipping is that I always paint my nails and I do them myself. It doesn't take me very long. It's just the kind of drying time that takes more time. And I noticed like the last 2 weeks I hadn't painted my nails at all, which, and normally I paint them and I leave them for like 3 weeks or so. So it's not like it's super high maintenance or loads of effort, but I just hadn't had nail polish for like 2 weeks, and that's really unusual for me. And I did actually paint my nails the other day, and I thought, wow, like the difference it makes to just do that small thing in terms of just me making that time for myself was a really big deal, even though, technically it shouldn't be. So what I'm trying to do now is recalibrate a little bit, and I still want to do the 4 show nights a week, and we have this is the kind of the last 2 weeks, and then we've got a break for Christmas. So I'm just trying to power through. But I'm aware that if I keep going the way I am, without taking the time for myself, without kind of setting some boundaries, that I will burn out and I will potentially, my immune system will suffer, my health, my connections and relationships, etc. So I'm trying to address and correct that now, while, before it gets too bad. I'll be honest, I've got a sore throat right now and I'm not feeling 100%, but I'm trying to heal and recover. And I've got like just all of my, literally, I've got them to take like after this session. I've got all of my supplements here to take. And I'm kind of just going to talk through what my personal routine and recommendations for me, what works for me or what I'm trying are. But just as a massive clear disclaimer, I'm not a doctor, I'm not a medical professional. Some of the supplements I take have been recommended to me by a doctor, but overall, my kind of goal is to reduce inflammation, boost my immune system, and just kind of try and look after myself as much as possible. So I haven't kind of formally like researched stuff today. I'm planning to just talk through what my own experience and tips are, and if anyone has anything that they want to share, in terms of what works for you or what you find life changing, please do share. So, one of the first things that I've started to do recently is take omega-3 supplements. And I've started to have more kind of oily fish and anchovies, sardines, things like that. And that was recommended to me by a doctor. So yeah, and a little more context around why I'm trying to reduce inflammation and, look after myself more. So I had glandular fever earlier in the year, and essentially for at least the last 6 months, if not longer, my tonsils have been huge. They've just been perpetually massive and swollen. And even if I don't have a cold or flu or anything, even if I'm just fine, my tonsils still take up like most of my throat. And I think I've gotten used to it because most of the time it doesn't bother me. But then occasionally from time to time, like this weekend and like, the last few days, they've been quite sore. But when I spoke to a doctor, he said that, we could remove your tonsils, but unfortunately, it seems that there's inflammation in your body that's causing that. And if we remove your tonsils, then that underlying inflammation is still there. So it kind of doesn't solve the problem. So that's why I'm getting more focused on trying to reduce inflammation myself. So obviously, really obvious starting point is hydration. And if you need a reminder to hydrate, please do. I actually find that in winter, I maybe struggle to stay hydrated more than I do in summer because I think when it's warmer, I naturally feel more thirsty. So I think that's a really big thing. And yeah, so staying hydrated, obviously, really simple, really obvious one. Another one, of course, is sleep. And so, and I'm not advocating for this, I'm not saying anyone else should do this, but this is something that personally works for me. And I kind of was obviously feeling run down, I had a sore throat and stuff the last few days. So I took like flu medication that we get in the UK called night nurse, or like cold and flu medication on Saturday night and also last night, just because for me, it completely like knocks me out and I just have a really strong, really heavy, great sleep. And that's one of the biggest things for me for recovery is getting a really strong night's sleep or even getting like extra sleep. I find that really, really helpful and really healing for me personally. Obviously, if you can do that without any medication, like great, and you should. I do take natural supplements sometimes for sleep, but if I'm actually unwell and do have a cold or flu or sore throat or whatever, then you know I'm not totally opposed to like having that from time to time. It's not a regular thing at all. Um, and I feel like as a result of that and getting the extra like, couple of hours sleep I needed, so I had like 9 hours sleep 2 nights in a row. And I think that that's like kind of helped a lot. Like my throat is definitely less sore today. Another one is also hot drinks. So right now I'm drinking a chamomile, vanilla, and manuka honey tea, which is absolutely delicious. And obviously, hot drinks I find really soothing when you've got a sore throat or even just when it's cold. There's a element of kind of comfort to them. And I'm also trying really hard to take comfort in or find to kind of comfort and pleasure in things that aren't just food. Because I absolutely love food. It's a massively like rewarding thing for me, something I really, really love and get a lot of pleasure from. But I don't want that to be my default and kind of the only or main way that I treat myself. So I think finding moments and things that you can connect with. So, for example, getting a massage or having a bath or doing something else nice for yourself where, it makes you feel good and you potentially can also like get some dopamine, but without it just being something that's like bad for you. Or, I mean, not that treating yourself to food once in a while is bad for you, but, it's about balance. And I've said this to someone else before, like, cake is delicious, but if you had it every day and for every meal, you'd be malnourished and you wouldn't feel very good. So yeah. And then in terms of supplements, what I was saying, so I've started having a lot more kind of omega-3 and oily fish, and from the research that I've done, obviously those kind of like whether you're having oily fish or omega supplements, they're really great for boosting kind of brain health, focus, and also um immunity. They're massively anti-inflammatory, which I personally didn't know until this doctor told me. And Angie's just shared we need to be choosing wild fish to eat nowadays as much as possible. Mercury and plastics in fish is rife. Yeah, and that's one thing that I've also been kind of looking into is, um, you know, obviously when you're having supplements as well, there is a lot of education around the fact that you shouldn't be having the same things all the time because they build up in your body. So when you've been kind of supplementing for a while, the thinking is that then once your kind of levels of something get a bit higher, then you can do with having less of it. So that's kind of worth bearing in mind as well, or speaking to your medical professionals about as well. The other ones that I've got in front of me from what I can see and remember, I've got cranberry, which is really, really great for kind of bladder health. And one of the reasons I started taking cranberry is one, I drink a lot of water, which means that I need to like pee fairly often, just to be blunt about it. And a lot of people who hydrate well quite often have that. And one of my friends actually recommended to me, she said that she takes cranberry supplements because she feels or believes that when she has them, even if she's really, really hydrating, it just helps her to not need to pee as often. So I started taking them and I think I noticed a difference, but they're really great for just avoiding like UTIs or just generally kind of like bladder and urinary tract health. It's meant to be really good for that. The other things I've got turmeric and black pepper tablets, which I mean turmeric's just one of those sort of godsend supplements, and I try and have it in food as much as I can as well. So Melissa, obviously I'm not a kind of doctor or medical professional, so I'd suggest kind of researching on I mean I can show you actually what they all look like, but these are the cranberry ones I take. These, and they're just from Amazon. They're just like little pink tablets. And I mainly when I take supplements, I just kind of research the highest rated ones and then read through the reviews, and I just try and Google, what I'd recommend as well around that, or what people say or what they recommend. I don't kind of do it as an exact science. I'm not an expert in this area, but I just kind of go off of like what works for me. But speaking about turmeric, I do take these are the turmeric ones, and the dosage is like 2 of those. But I also take a liquid turmeric supplement, and it's a fermented supplement, so it's got like turmeric and some other stuff in it, some other berry stuff. And I bought that recently, so that's kind of full of probiotics and prebiotics and also turmeric. Um, Also spirulina and chlorella. So I take quite a few of these ones. These are the omega supplements. I believe this one is taurine. I don't actually really know what taurine does, but someone recommended it to me. Um, so I just kind of added it into my rotation. One of the best and biggest ones for me actually is electrolytes. So I take like 2 of these. They've got magnesium. Basically, I can't remember all of the other ones, but it's just full of like minerals and salts that are really good for you and for hydration. And I take them every day, but I also will occasionally have extra if, for example, I've had a couple of like alcoholic drinks to offset that, or also if I'm feeling particularly like dehydrated, then I'll have extra electrolyte supplements. The other thing that I've had recommended, which I take a lot, and I've talked about this before, and some of you have also responded, is Celtic salt. So it's a grey salt, and it's full of other minerals and salts and electrolytes and things. And that's meant to be really fab to take first thing in the morning, because obviously overnight we haven't really been drinking water. We haven't had like any minerals. And then what else? I've got probiotics as well that I take. Ashwagandha. Does anybody know about ashwagandha? I take that for, it's an adaptogen, and so I take that um to kind of help with my sort of emotional and mental health. So just kind of, it helps me to it's a sort of regulating adaptogenic supplement. So what that means is that it can basically help balance your mood. And yeah, exactly. So Coco just said it can help relieve anxiety. And yeah, I find it extremely helpful. So that's one that I take. What else have I got? I'm just looking at at the moment, because I'm not well, I've got echinacea in the rotation as well, just to help boost my immunity. And that, I personally find the kind of A Vogel brand of echinacea is the best for me. Um, but I find when you take that within like a few days of having a little tickle in your throat or anything, it just basically gets rid of it and really, really helps. Um, I've had sort of other echinacea supplements, but that's kind of the best one. Oh, and Wendy, you said vitamin C and zinc. Yeah, I've actually got zinc here as well. This little one is zinc. Oh, and also I think this one is vitamin D and K3, because one of the things that I'm finding is I'm not getting enough daylight at the moment, because obviously I'm on this horrible routine of like going to bed really late and then waking up late, and then I basically leave the house to go to the show on show nights. And quite often by the time I leave the house, even in the afternoon, it's already dark, which means that I'm probably really low in vitamin D. So yeah, that's kind of some of the things I'm supplementing with. I'm also having a lot of like fermented foods and probiotic foods. So things like kefir. I make a green smoothie that has like banana, kale or spinach, celery, cucumber, turmeric, ginger, lemon, um, and kefir in it. Yeah. Huh. That's really interesting. So Angie ashwagandha. Oh wow, I didn't know that. That's really useful. So Angie's just shared that ashwagandha's good, but you need breaks from it. Some people have a reaction to ashwagandha where after a while they experience demotivation. It's a thing. That's so interesting. I wonder if that's because it makes you like so relaxed, or so kind of I guess because sometimes for me at least, like anxiety or pressure like helps to give me a bit of a push sometimes, as much as it doesn't always feel super great. Yeah, Wendy's just said garlic as well as a huge antiviral and immune booster. Absolutely. And I love garlic, so I eat enough of that and don't really need to supplement, thankfully. There was also there's another thing that I swear by whenever I have a sore throat. There's two things actually. So one of them is cayenne pepper, and if you look up, I'm gonna actually just find the list and look it up. But cayenne pepper, I find when I've got a sore throat, it's one of the best things that helps it to heal. So I don't know whether many of you know this, but cayenne pepper actually contains some of the same compounds um, that painkillers do. So actually, if you have cayenne pepper, I'd advise having it in cold, not hot water, but mix it in properly and then just like sip it, but like sip it carefully where it doesn't get stuck in your throat. I mix actually turmeric, cayenne, lemon, honey, and then and ginger and turmeric, and then I have that like diluted in water whenever I've got a sore throat. So let's find cayenne pepper benefits. There was a really good like chart that I used to send to everybody all the time. So 16 benefits of cayenne. Let me have a look. So I don't know if I can see all of them, but let's try. All right, here we go. So anti-irritant properties. Cayenne has the ability to ease upset stomach, ulcers, sore throats, spasmodic and irritating coughs, and diarrhea. Anti-cold and flu agent. Cayenne pepper aids in breaking up and moving congested mucus. Once mucus begins to leave the body, relief from flu symptoms generally follows. Antifungal properties. The results of one study indicated that cayenne pepper could effectively prevent the formation of the fungal pathogens Phomopsis and Calectotrichum. I hope I'm saying that right, but if anyone knows how to pronounce it correctly, let me know. Migraine headache prevention. So this may be related to the pepper's ability to stimulate a pain response in a different area of the body, thus reverting the brain's attention to the new site. Following this initial pain reaction, the nerve fibers have a depleted substance P, which in brackets says the nervous pain chemical, and the perception of pain is lessened. Detox support is another one. Cayenne is a known circulatory stimulant. It also increases the pulse of our lymphatic and digestive rhythms by heating the body, and the natural process of detoxification is streamlined. Cayenne also causes us to sweat, another important process of detoxification. Combined with lemon juice and honey, cayenne tea is an excellent morning beverage for total body detox. So I might not read the kind of description for all of this, but I might share a link to it in here. Let me see if I can do that. Hold on. Share, copy. Let me get this in the chat here. There we go. Okay, so it's also, detox support, digestive aid, anti-inflammatory properties, helps produce saliva, useful for blood clots, joint pain reliever, anti-allergen, antibacterial properties, possible anti-cancer agent, support weight loss, improves heart health, and remedy for toothache. So, yeah. And I'm thinking, by the way, I might cut today's live slightly short and end in at around kind of 5 or just after, because I am definitely like under the weather, and I think we'll see how we go, because if we're having a good chat and I'm in flow, then we'll carry on. So Angie said crushed garlic 5 minutes before use to release properties. Yeah, I've heard that. And I also heard I think it was Lauren Peterbrook, she's known as, also on here, and she shared something previously where she said that she used to put slices of, I think it was her that said it, she used to put slices of garlic inside her children's socks. I think that was her. And that used to help them a lot with a cold or when they had a cough. But one thing that I find that that helped a lot with when I have like an uncontrollable cough, especially, do you know when you lie down and then your cough's worse at night? One thing that really, really helps me for some reason is putting like a Vicks or other brand Vapo Rub on the bottom of my feet and then putting socks over it. I don't know why that works, but it does. I used to get sick a lot when I was younger, and I found that remedy online, and I basically did it, and it really made a huge, huge difference. So I swear by that, and I do it every time, and I recommend it to friends and stuff as well, and they all have had kind of useful, positive experiences from it also. So that's definitely one thing to kind of think about or bear in mind. Oh, cool, Claude, you do the same. So I just haven't actually like come across that many people who know about it or do it as well, but it just literally works incredibly. And I don't know the science behind it, because obviously, people say, well, why can't I just put it on my chest or whatever else? But I think it's, for some reason, it really, really works going through our feet. Does anyone know why, or can anyone look that up and share with the group? And does anybody have any other kind of recommendations around Angie, I do that as well. So Angie's just said, when you have a cough, try to sleep with upper body a little elevated / at an angle. The other things that I find work really well is, I don't know whether any of you know about kind of it's called like sinus rinsing, or like, well, what are the other, like using a neti pot. So I use like the Neilmed sinus rinse products because I just find them convenient, and they work well for me. But you can also use a neti pot or things like that, and I find that really helpful, especially if you've got like nasal congestion, or you just kind of, especially this time of year when we're breathing in kind of dry, cold air. It just helps to add a bit of like moisture to your kind of sinus passages. And I also try and use kind of salt water, like nasal sprays and things like that are natural products. There's a brand called like Sterimar, and I use they have like this little tiny spray bottle, and it's for like cold and sinusitis relief. And it's like at the first sign of a cold or sinus inflammation, you just kind of use a spray of that in each nostril, and I find that works really well. What else is there that I do? I'm sure other things will come to me, but also getting steam and like going to a steam room or using kind of a facial steamer if you have one, or worst case scenario, just even getting a bowl of hot water with a towel over it. Obviously, if you're using hot water or things like that with steam, be careful, especially if you've got children around in your household. And yeah, just inhaling steam is really helpful. So, sometimes even having a hot shower and closing the bathroom door and just making the room more steamy. But then leaving the door open to let the steam escape so that you don't end up with damp or mold afterwards. Yeah, staying hydrated, as I mentioned, with hot drinks. But if you're having probiotics or any foods that are full of probiotics and good bacteria, try and avoid hot drinks for like 30 to 60 minutes afterwards, just because otherwise the hot drinks can kill the kind of good bacteria and all the nice stuff that you've bothered to put in. So that's actually why I have my supplements ready to take after I finish my tea, because I don't want to kill off any of the good stuff. So yeah. And then in terms of, so obviously this topic is kind of a dual thing of boosting our immunity, but also kind of charging our social batteries and not getting kind of overextended or burnt out during this time of year where there's a lot more social stuff happening, but we have more demands on our time. So one of the big things that I sort of decided, or not decided, but wanted to share was that obviously saying, like, trying to avoid saying yes to everything is a really big one. So that's kind of what I'd say is like try not to overcommit or overextend yourself. I'd say, if you are on the side of caution and you sort of say no to things earlier on, and then you have the option to kind of say yes later, or tell someone, for example, that you'd let them know if you're able to join later on. I think that's better than committing to too much and then feeling guilty if you can't do it, or also kind of committing to things and then like feeling an obligation to go even if you're unwell or overstretched and don't really have the capacity. So that's one of the things. The other thing I'd say that most people don't really consider is having really strong boundaries with yourself about when you're going to go home and what is most important. So, for example, if you go out for like a Christmas party or whatever, and that you've got an early start the next day, or that you need to get 8 hours of sleep, being sort of strict and particular with yourself around when you need to leave and what you need to do for your overall well-being. So it doesn't mean missing out on things, because it mean I'd say if it's important for you to show up to something, like absolutely do, but then if you can help it, like consciously making a choice of how long you stay, or what the exchange rate is. Are you going to be suffering or struggling tomorrow? Are you going to be tired or feeling unwell the next day? And basically being more mindful and conscientious of how long you're staying or when you're going home, and like, why is it? Just because you got carried away, or is it because you genuinely are having a lovely time and want to stay? And it's a conscious effort, because I think this time of year a lot of people, at least people that I've come across, some of them do struggle to have boundaries, or they get carried away. They're like, oh, I'm going to go for one drink, and then like they get home at whatever time in the morning and then they regret it, right? So it's not about there being anything wrong with doing that, but it's like, is it a conscious choice where you're like, okay, tonight I'm going to let my hair down, I'm going to stay out late, and I'm okay to take the hit tomorrow? Or is it a, well, like, screw it, I can do whatever I want and I'll deal with the like hangover or whatever the next day? And there is a difference there, right? So let me catch up on the comments. So Patty says soles and hands don't have sweat glands to inhibit absorption, and paws are larger and act like straws to suck them in. And Claude said, first sign of cold, I used homeopathy, oscillo. I can't pronounce that, Claude, but I'm gonna look it up. If you guys look at the comments, I haven't heard of that. What is it? And it's made from the heart and liver of wild duck. Wow. So it eases symptoms and shortens the duration of flu. To date, there's little evidence to support the claim, though, unfortunately. But I still take things that are not always that have like scientific results around it. Because sometimes things just work. But yeah, I'm gonna look that up. Claude, can you buy that over the counter in the UK, or do you have to have it like prescribed or anything? Could you just buy it? So one little thing I know I just remembered because Insight Timer asks us as teachers to mention this 2 or 3 times during our live. Um, I for those of you who've joined later and don't know, I'm under the weather today, so I'm absolutely not on the form that I would kind of normally be on. I've had a lot of late nights working on a show that I'm involved in at the moment. And my immune system is all out of whack, which is why I'm like doing this live today on this topic because it's very relevant and very like close to home right now. But if any of you have kind of gotten any value from this chat or kind of enjoyed it, I'd really appreciate support in the form of a donation, or alternatively, if you're not in a position to support me financially, you can support me by following me on Insight Timer and also subscribing to my YouTube channel, which I'm trying to grow. So I'm putting a lot of kind of short content on there, which will be little clips from my previous Insight Timer sessions. And also, I'm just putting it in the chat. So that's my YouTube handle. So basically, I put all of my past Insight Timer sessions on there, and a lot of them are much better than this one today because I'm usually, feeling well and more vibrant, and generally there's a lot more kind of preparation and energy that goes into my lives. But if you're kind of enjoying my energy today, then like you're gonna love the rest of my sessions. And yeah, that's kind of the 2 main ways to support me. Follow me on Insight Timer. If you feel called to subscribe to my YouTube, you can kind of watch the other full videos there. The kind of handle is in the chat, and also there's short clips of some of my previous lives, just like the little gems, the little insight and wisdom bits that I've had there. So yeah, I'd really appreciate the support on that front, and I'll be creating more kind of short form original content for that channel as well. And thank you for the healing energy, Claude. But yeah, if you are in a position to kind of support and donate, I would really value that, and I really appreciate anyone that does donate. I think it allows me to kind of continue my work on here, because at the moment, as I mentioned before, I'm working on a kind of community immersive theatre project, but that's as a volunteer. So I was made redundant earlier this year, and this is kind of my main source of income at the moment. Obviously, it's not enough to sustain me, but I think it's something that's really important to me. And any donations that I get go back into like things like equipment, like microphones and things like that, and lighting and bits and softwares that help me to improve the quality of my lives going forward. So thank you, everybody, and thank you all for being here as well. And yeah, it's nice to have kind of, I know there's some regulars that are in, I can see the faces in the bottom, so welcome everybody. And also for anyone that's new as well, it's lovely to have you here, and do come back on a day when I'm feeling better. I tend to do my lives at 9 p.m. In the on the weekdays, but my schedule is all over the place at the moment because of this show. So, and actually, is anybody curious about the show and wants to hear a bit about it? Because it is a really interesting and kind of special thing. So I'm going to put the name in the chat. It's got a really funny, silly name. And if you're based in London, I would absolutely recommend getting involved as a volunteer, even if you just come and help out for like one show night, because it's literally the best thing that I've ever done. So I've talked about this on other lives, but basically the show, the way it's structured is that each person that manages to like get a ticket, and it's really, really hard to get a ticket because there's only one person that goes through the show at a time. So they're called a passenger. So each passenger will kind of go through like 20, 25 rooms or scenes, one after another. So so when the first passenger comes into the show, they'll be in the first scene for like 2-3 minutes, and then they'll go into the next scene, and then the next passenger will come into the first scene. So basically everyone's like moving along like this, almost like a conveyor belt. So no two passengers will ever be in the same scene at the same time. And it's absolutely crazy like how precisely timed it needs to be to make sure that passengers don't run into each other. So ultimately the kind of purpose of the show is to put the passenger in someone else's shoes consistently over the course of the show. So for example, in previous shows there was I'm trying to think of some of the previous scenes they've had. They had like one scene where somebody was they were where the passenger's kind of the main character in each of the scenes. So one of the scenes they were a charity donor and they were holding a massive check and giving that to a charity. And so it's kind of like the passenger getting to experience what it would feel like to be in those positions or doing these things. Another scene that they've had in the past is like where somebody is at their own funeral and they're like the passenger will be lying in a coffin and there'll be funeral flowers with their name spelt out, and that means that they have to rearrange the funeral flowers for every single passenger that comes through that night. But it's like all these little things of attention to detail. So I'm a scene leader for one of the like 2025 scenes for this show, and I my scene is quite like spiritually inclined, so it's the right type of vibe for people who are on Insight Timer. So if anyone's in London and wants to first of all meet me in real life, or also just get involved and have kind of a once in a lifetime opportunity, please do drop me a message or just sign up on the website. I've put the name of the show just at the bottom. But what's really special about it is that it's basically thousands and thousands of volunteers that come to make this happen every time it does. And so the last show was like 8 years ago. Previous shows, it's been going for like 20 years, but quite often with gaps in between because it's such a massive undertaking. Because obviously they have to build the sets for like 20 or 25 scenes, and then obviously everything is like mostly done by volunteers. So it's an absolutely wonderful, crazy, amazing thing. So whenever passengers have been through the show, they end up coming back as volunteers because they really loved it and they want to help other people have that same kind of experience and kind of go through that as well. Um, yeah, so it's pretty cool, and it's like the most interesting thing that I've ever been involved with, and I also feel like it's helping me to fulfill my purpose of building community and connection, and doing something that matters, because a lot of people have reported kind of after going through the show as passengers or even being involved as volunteers, the impact it's had on them and their lives. So, for example, one man came out to his wife in the bar afterwards, after they'd both been through the show, because he realized that, from going through this experience, it gave him the kind of freedom to admit to himself and to his partner who he really is. Someone else who was like terrified of dogs, like one of the scenes in a previous show had dogs in it. And so just one second, my laptop is ringing for some reason. I think I got a phone call, but my laptop started ringing as well. And so one of the other scenes in a previous show involved like dogs, and this passenger was like terrified of dogs, and she was then in a room full of dogs, and then she sent a message to the founders, the creative directors, a couple of weeks later saying that she got a dog after that. So it's interesting how things, like how much it changes people's lives, and it creates a lot of empathy. I think that's the purpose of it, is to help people understand like what it's like to walk in someone else's shoes. So there was another scene where you were in a setup or a situation where you're kind of a refugee, and you're basically, you go down like a slide and then you end up in the back of a truck, and you're in a kind of, you're amongst loads of people in a truck, and you're a refugee, and then you're like questioned at border control. So they basically, like, that created so much empathy for people who previously wouldn't have necessarily thought like what it's like to be a refugee, or how difficult or challenging, or you know what it's like to feel like you're not welcome here and you haven't got a place to go when you've left a place but just because it simply wasn't safe for you anymore. So yeah, it's a really interesting project. And I feel really lucky and grateful to be involved, but I'm also trying to balance doing as much as I can for that, because I'm in a really involved role. So I'm a scene leader, which means that I'm doing what I want to. I've chosen to kind of commit to all of the show nights unless I'm unwell or something. But if you're kind of just a kind of regular volunteer, then you can literally come and just be involved for like one night of the show. And we've had people who've flown over from other places just to kind of be involved and volunteer for a night, because it's a really special, really unique experience. But also, I've got like quite a few people who are in my scene who are doing multiple nights with us because they just really love it and they have the capacity. Or, you know, there's people who've just sort of arranged their lives for the next few months so that they can kind of do this and be involved as much as possible. So yeah, is anybody else at the moment just like struggling with balancing everything in the pre-Christmas season, or has anybody got any anxieties or worries about the next couple of weeks between now and the new year? Because if so, I think it's a nice space to kind of share and give each other kind of feedback or advice, or help each other feel sort of seen and heard and share a fresh perspective if needed. Surely, no one, surely not everyone here. There's 80 people here. Surely not everybody is like on top form and totally like ready and balanced for the whole Christmas season, are they? Is there not one person here who's overstretched or kind of struggling at all? Well, in that case, I mean, feel free to still put things in the chat. So Patty said one day at a time. Brilliant advice, Patty. I am going to wrap up a little bit early today, so I'll wrap up in the next 6 minutes. But I'm going to end as I start, which I often like to do. So this book here is basically little tips, quotes, little messages, and I shared some of them at the beginning. So if anybody has, or anybody would like a little message or a little reading, if you share a number between 1 and 205, and I'll read out a little message for you, because some of you have joined later since I started all of the beginning bit. So I'm just going to read Angie's comment meanwhile. So Angie said, at the first sign of any illness, flood your body with vitamin C, not more than 2,000 or 3,000 milligrams, though, to stimulate cytokinesis, cytokines or cytokinesis. Drink garlic tea and eat garlic, organic honey, and fresh lemon drinks all day. That sounds delicious. So would anyone like a little message or a reading? If not, I'm going to pull one just at random and we can end on that. But if anyone would like one, please give me a number between 1 and 200. Okay, Claude. Brilliant. So, right. Enjoy this moment. While setting goals and planning for the future is important, make sure you give yourself a chance to enjoy your life as it is. Be grateful for each day and take the time to enjoy the life you're living right now. That's for Claude. Would anybody else like one? I'm going to pull one at random for myself / the group. If anyone else wants one, put a number between 1 and 205 in the chat. So, look for inspiration. This is the one that I've pulled just randomly for the group. If you're looking for inspiration, ask yourself, am I the first person to ever want this for my life? Am I the first person to ever have this dream? In the vast majority of cases, the answer will be no. There will be many other people who have achieved or are achieving the very same things you want for your life. Seek out people who inspire you and learn as much as you can from them. So that was 103. And then I've got Angie, Debbie, Paris, and Kelly, and then we'll end there. So Angie wanted 205. Don't know if we've ever had that page before. Right. So Angie, the choice is yours. ultimately, how you live your life is up to you. You can pursue material possessions, external validation, and the satisfaction of your ego, or you can choose to make genuine happiness your goal, a life where you cherish your loved ones, honor your values, and focus on being the best you can be. So for Paris, we've got 3. I also don't think we've ever had 3 before. Oh wait, hold on. There isn't a 3. Paris, is there another number that you'd like? Because 3 is actually just like the introduction bit. Yeah. For some reason, the page counting starts from 4, but this would be page 3, which is actually, there is a quote on 3. Let's go with it. For Sophia and Tobias, and this is a quote from Ralph Waldo Emerson, we find a delight in the beauty and happiness of children that makes the heart too big for the body. So there was actually a quote there, which is interesting. So Kelly wanted 33. Let's find it. Hard to do it one-handed. Okay. So Kelly, enjoy the ride. If you feel like life is an uphill battle, remind yourself that you don't have to climb the hill. It's something that you're choosing to do because you know that the reward will be worth it in the long term. When you find yourself feeling overwhelmed by obstacles, if the right move for you is to walk away, then do it. If deep in your heart you know that you need to carry on, take a big breath and hold on for the ride. And then we've got 22 for Debbie. And then we will wrap up. So if anyone wants to say their goodbyes, or add any closing remarks, please do so now. And then I'll read them before we end. So this is 22 for Debbie, and it's a quote from somebody called Jeremy Kitson. Don't know who he is, but if anyone does, put it in the chat. Destiny is not a matter of chance, it's a matter of choice. I like that. So, thank you everybody for being here today. I'm definitely, as I said, I'm not very well today, so I'm ending a little bit earlier. But yeah, we had 88 meditators here, which is nice in terms of like angel numbers and repeating numbers. And I think I've timed it well because I feel like I'm probably going to cough at some point soon. This book is called Love Your Life by Dominique Bertolucci. If anybody, I've said this before, but if anyone would like to support me on Insight Timer, obviously monetary donations are welcome. And if you're donating, if you've got an Apple device, you can donate via the link in my bio. So I've got a PayPal link there. So many of you probably know this, but Apple take 30% of donations on Insight Timer. But if you don't mind about that, or if you've got a non-Apple device, you can just donate here via this page or on my profile at any time. The other thing to note, if you're other ways to support me, which I'd really appreciate, is giving me a follow on Insight Timer, and you'll get notifications for when I'm doing my next lives. And also subscribing to my YouTube channel, which is where I post all of my previous Insight Timer lives. And I promise you guys, especially those that are new here, most of them are much, much better than this one today, because when we're not ill, obviously everything that we do is generally better and more enthusiastic and energetic. But yeah, those are kind of the main ways to support me. And I really appreciate all of you for sharing your time with me and being here, and hopefully see you soon. And if any of you are interested in I'm based in London and interested in finding out more about Yumi Bum Bum Train or volunteering, and there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes help they need as well. And you can give as much or as little time as you want, or just help out for like a night, or you can do multiple if you'd like to. But feel free to add me and drop me a message on here as well if you'd like to find out more. But thank you everybody, and have a great rest of your week, and I'll be back next week hopefully. I've been doing a session weekly and I'm hoping to keep that up. But yes, take care everybody, and thank you in advance for your donations, your follows, and your subscribes on YouTube. I think that's like the loveliest thing, when I see kind of all of the Insight Timer family supporting me in the other areas as well. And yeah, look after yourself everyone. Take care. Thanks Paris, thanks Angie, thanks Debbie and Kelly and Richard. Bye everybody, take care.